From Boca Raton, Florida, Rabbis Efrem Goldberg, Philip Moskowitz, and Josh Brody are taking you behind the Bima. The BRS Rabbis schmooze about contemporary issues and talk to special guests who give a behind-the-scenes look at how they got to where they are and what keeps them going. Welcome to Behind the Bima.
Good evening. Wednesday night, 9 p.m. I'm Rabbi Efrem Goldberg, joined by my dear colleagues and friends, Rabbi Philip Moskowitz and Rabbi Joshua Brody. We're here to take you
behind the Bima.
We are here to take you behind the Bima. As always, we begin an attitude of gratitude to our sponsor, our dear friend, David Mueller, the Mueller family. Thank you so much for your generosity this evening. David is sponsoring the Mueller family, sponsor commemoration of the upcoming 5th yahrzeit of David's father, Henry Mueller, Shimon ben Pinchas. Zichron Levrachi fled the Nazis in 1939, ended up in Niagara Falls, which became a vibrant Jewish community in Niagara Falls. Do you know that? Have you been to Niagara Falls?
Yes.
Did you ever go? Did you go over the falls?
I don't think you live if you go over the falls.
The Maid of the Mist?
There are people.
You go under the falls.
Is that what you do? Aren't there people who go over the falls?
Yeah, they just pulled someone out and they didn't make it. Someone just died. Like,
well, in that case, don't try it. Do not try it.
I didn't mean to laugh either.
Literally, it was just in the news.
If you listen on Behind the Bima, do not try that at home. He became the president of the show for 2 decades. Chavra Kadisha, he loved Chazanas. He was a great man. We knew him, and he produced a great family. So, David, thank you very much. It happens to be that our guest tonight, Bob Diener, who we're super excited for this conversation, founder, president of Hotels.com, GetARoom.com, and great philanthropist, Jewish leader, happens to be that our sponsor, David Mueller, looks a lot like our guest, Bob Diener.
Very interesting.
So much so that David told me, fun fact, at least once a month, a stranger comes up to him in shul and mistakes him for Bob Diener. So
we should have had a split screen showing them opposite each other. And
we could have. If there was a perfect night for that sponsor with that guest, it is tonight. Anyway, our listeners, live listeners, join the comments. Tell us if you've been to Niagara Falls. Am I wrong that you can't go over the falls? Are you not supposed to try that? I never did. I remember when we toured as a family and as a kid, we went on that boat. You know, they sell you the poncho and the mist is everywhere and you see it. It's magnificent. Is it still a popular spot? Do people go to Niagara Falls today?
I don't know.
I assume so.
Is it on either of your radar? When you and your families are thinking of Yeshiva Week, is Niagara Falls in the top 10?
No, it's cold there now. What are you talking about?
Is
it's
it
like
frozen,
it's
frozen
like
over?
Ice now.
Yeah, there's no.
Every summer we talk about it. We were in Boston. We're like, oh, it's only 6 hours. And then we pause and we say it's 6 hours.
Our technology expert just texted me and reminded me that for several reasons, we turned off the comments for the last couple of days. So if we want people to weigh in on Niagara Falls and whether they think that we have a future in the world to come, then maybe we'll turn the comments back on. So, yeah, what Yeshiva Week? Are you guys planning? Are you thinking?
Yes.
Yeshiva Week. You going anywhere?
Yeah, we had plans and it looks like they're not happening.
What were the plans?
This was back in May. We got these great flights to Israel. They were $550 each. So it felt like a real gvir for the first time. Let's go. The whole family's going to Israel. Turns out we just got a refund on all of those tickets.
Wow.
And we're not going to be able to go again. So
it's back up. Israel's back up.
No, but because my son had corona, and then it was the same week we're scheduling to get the 2 younger kids the vaccinations, and they have to take 2 vaccines, and you still have to have it 2 weeks before you fly. So we miss it by about a week. So
gotcha.
Not happening.
Gotcha. Okay. What about you?
Hanging out here. We have family coming down. And then we'll see. Maybe we'll do a couple day trips, maybe 1 or 2 days
nice.
Up north. We'll see. But we're always enjoying family coming down.
That's fantastic. All right. It's always a great
How about the Goldbergs?
We're also more local in Florida. Just a local trip. Get out, get away a little bit.
So basically three of us are going somewhere.
It's basically, comments are back on. So, ladies and gentlemen, everyone listening, Niagara Falls, tell us about your Niagara Falls experience and whether it's on your radar today, and can you go over the falls, or that is a misconception and nobody should try that at Niagara Falls. We're planning. I think we would all agree that what we're planning are family trips, not vacations. Ooh. Fundamental difference. Not complaining. Family trip is amazing. Count down to it. It's critically important. It creates memories. It's amazing.
It's not vacation.
But it's not a vacation. So sometimes you need a little vacation. Sometimes you need a family trip. Sometimes they overlap. Rarely so. But anyway, exciting. Exciting.
Good.
What's going on, gentlemen?
Now, you sent a video right before this, which really got me going, a trip down memory lane. You sent us the first ever episode of Behind the Bima.
Was not
And
called that then.
it was called Coffee Talk. It was humiliating how bad it is. The lighting was off. We had no idea how to work the technology. We were on Zoom. It was really embarrassing.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But you know what?
It was great.
Know that if we're still doing this in a year from now, then you know that we'll look back at this and be like, what were we thinking?
Of course, that's how things evolve. But I was shocked by how far the show has come.
Show has come far. Although, listen, I got an email just today from a friend, somebody in the industry who knows, and he told me that our opening is off. We've got to improve that. And he actually even contributed a song for that opening, and maybe we'll incorporate that going forward. Here it is, a cue. Show is supposed to start with a cue, a 10 to 15 second of music to mark the start of a show. He attached a cue in case we want to use it. So we'll take a look at that with our cue being off. So there's still a lot of work to be done. We're 3 amateurs.
Always looking to improve.
We've got other full-time jobs. Listen, we're just having fun on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m.
If you've got some great music you want to send in, we can use it. We're happy to try.
We got. So great event last night at the Boca Raton Synagogue. Nearly 1,000 people standing up for Israel, Jews and non-Jews, working to get back the bodies of Hadar Golden and Oren Shaul. And hopefully everybody was emailing and calling members of Congress today to make aid rebuilding Gaza conditional on those bodies being returned. And, a lot of attention it got, and not everybody was happy with it. But if 1,000 people call Congress and it makes a difference, if the Golden family feel that the people in Boca Raton didn't forget their son, you could be critical that we had, we did it with the Latino Coalition. You could be critical because you think that we leaned in one direction. You could be critical. And there's criticism. I have criticism of our own event. The first thing we do, people don't know this, we'll go a little behind the Bima. Every week we have a staff meeting on Monday. And the very first thing that we do is we review the week before. Very first thing we do is we sit down, we look at Shabbos, we look at the events, we look at the programs, and we said, what did we get? What was good? What was right? What do we want to repeat? And where did we go wrong? What could we have done better? What could we learn from it? And then we plan the week ahead. We've always got a lot going on. So, as I tell people, you'll be hard pressed to find a bigger critic of Efrem Goldberg than Efrem Goldberg. I know. So last night's event, things we could have done differently, things we could have done better. But, it also can be frustrating because you kind of want to turn to those people and say, how was your pro-Israel event? How many people came to that? How much diversity did you get represented in that? How many calls to action? How many people did you get in that? Oh, no, I haven't done anything. I don't host anything. I don't create anything. I haven't organized anything. I just want to sit with my keyboard and internet connection and tell you what you're doing wrong. So anyway.
It was a lot of people.
I feel good.
I feel a little better now.
There were a lot of people. For those who weren't there, it was an amazing event. There was packed. There was a great vibe in the room. As you said, there wasn't just great energy, but there was an action item. Everyone left with marching orders. We had a chazan who got the place bouncing.
Rocked the house.
Ambassador Friedman was winded by all the dancing. It was really amazing. It was special, and it had everything. There were parts when he was singing Yerushalayim Zal Zahav where you got choked up and it was a little bit emotional. You laughed a lot. You had a great couple of jokes there at the end, Rabbi.
We had a national anthem. We called up a guy to sing the national anthem. And after our tikva, it's like, I'm not doing it. I don't know the other one.
We had everything. That's my point. But you know what? I want you to know, and I'm saying this, obviously I'm biased. I'm a staff member of the show. It was a really proud staff member. It was a really proud, it was a really proud member for our community. And the proof is the emails I know you were flooded with today. I was flooded with today of our members saying how proud they were of our show to stand up, make our voices heard, take a stand. And 1,000 people in an Orthodox show on a Tuesday night celebrating Israel and a call to action is something that everyone should be proud of. And as you said, if you can replicate it better, God bless, go do it. And we'll be the first ones to attend your event and support it. But we did this in the way that we thought was best. And again, we'll learn from the ways we could do it differently. But I, for one, was enormously proud of our community last night.
I appreciate that. And we're not patting ourselves in the back right now. That's not the point of reflecting on last night's event. First of all, we are proud of it. And we also hope to inspire other people. And I couldn't agree with you more. If you think you could do it differently, better, then more power to you, and we'll applaud you and we'll promote it. We need people doing things for Israel. As I just wrote seconds before we went on, I was responding to an email, who there were people who wrote publicly that signed, and there's others who reach out privately who want to understand. I appreciate the people who want to understand privately before they go and attack publicly, especially if you have a relationship with them. I think it's a good policy. But anyway, so the person, said, if you looked at the lineup of last night, it certainly leaned in one direction, and it did. And again, we're critical of ourselves. We tried, and we wanted to incorporate. And it happens to be that our elected leaders statewide, our governor, 2 of our senators are Republican. Happens to be that 2 of the guests last night, Ambassador Friedman and Ben Shapiro, are Boca local residents. But when we spoke about Congressman Deutsch, our beloved congressman, and said he's the best congressman in Israel for Israel in Congress, and he passes legislation, 1,000 people gave a sustained long applause. We talked about Republicans and Democrats and bipartisanship. And I just, I wonder, the people who felt that we leaned in one direction last night, are they going to go online and applaud when Congressman Richie Torres comes to BRS in February? And this is what I wrote back to the person. What I wrote back to the person was, I said, I want you to know, historically, as long as I've been here, which is now 23 years, we have Republicans and Democrats right and left when we think they get it on Israel. And every single time, the people on the other side reach out to criticize, how could we have so-and-so? Every time. Every time Congressman Deutsch has spoken at a BRS, which is countless times, I get criticism. I'm told I'm a flaming liberal, left-wing Israel hater. And every time we have someone on the right, I'm told you're a Trump-loving, right-wing fanatic. You're a member of the Taliban. And you know what? You just have to hear the noise and sustain the blows and keep your eye on the ball and say, if you love Israel and you're reasonable, then we're going to continue to work with you. And so some events we can do it together. We've had some wonderful bipartisan events, right? We had Congressman Deutsch and Congressman Mast at the same time. Right. We've done some wonderful events. Other times there's going to be an emphasis or a focus one direction or the other.
We had Ileana Ross-Layton and Congressman Deutsch at our dinner one year. That was very special.
We honored. Yeah,
that was
exactly.
A great dinner.
So last night leaned in one direction, and you're right. We know the criticism. We could have made an effort somehow to figure out more diversity. Last night leaned in one direction, and then believe me, when Congressman Torres, who's been on Behind the Bima, who is a African-American, Latino, progressive, liberal, tremendous supporter of Israel, when he speaks in the shul Shabbos morning at the end of davening, when davening is over, it's not during the davening, it's not during a service, because we are going to applaud and support and encourage his further support of Israel against horrific harassment and abuse. We will take it on the chin for that. And I wonder if the people giving it to me on the chin today will be out there applauding and defending and supporting when we have him then. So it's easy to shoot arrows. It was a big lesson.
But so none of that was for me, the most inspiring part of the night. The most inspiring part of the night at the beginning, Rabbi Goldberg, in your introductory remarks, as you were thanking everyone, you thanked the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office and our security, volunteer security team who were there to protect us. And there was a thunderous standing ovation, a sustained thunderous standing ovation. The Palm Beach sheriff, who was in the front of the room, was visibly moved by the experience. He couldn't believe that 1,000 people were on their feet, cheering him. And it was a moment of great pride, I think, for all of us, that it was a big Kiddush Hashem, that the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office knows that when they put themselves in the front line, we appreciate it. What only surpassed that was that at the end of the program, someone told me that one of our members, who I'm going to keep anonymous for now because I don't have permission to share it, but one of our members, the event started at
might
6.
have an accent.
Might have an accent. The event started at 6, which means the Palm Beach Sheriff was already there at 5 o'clock. The program went till 9:30, 9:45, which means there's a long time. One of our members ordered pizza to be delivered for the Palm Beach Sheriff's officers so that they would have dinner that night. They wouldn't have to go hungry. He did it without fanfare. He didn't need any recognition. I only found out, in a backward channel. But to me, that was amazing that one of our members thought in a selfless way out of his own pocket to support the Palm Beach Sheriffs. I thought that was amazing. Kol hakavod to him, and another great point of pride.
He couldn't bring a pie up to the front.
No, I found out when I saw the empty boxes in the lobby. I was rummaging through them, starving at 11 o'clock at night. That's how I found out.
I walked out of the shul with one of the sheriffs, and we're walking to, he's walking to his squad car. I was walking to my car. And I said, thank God that, we're all safe tonight. And I said, actually, thank you. Thank you and God. Thank all of you for keeping us
amazing. It was amazing. We want to wrap up and bring on our incredible guest, Bob Diener. But I will just say, and I echo that sentiment, it was a great point of pride, the reception that the audience gave to local law enforcement, to thank them. They stand up, they stand in, they run towards the problems. and they cooperated enormously with us on this event. We're not going to give any oxygen to the truly wicked people that caused not only the police, but the FBI to have worked and are still working, let's just say, on certain threats that came in for this event. And Palm Beach Sheriff's Office, our local captain, Captain Moss, our security volunteer head, David Berger, our paid security. There was enormous security cooperation. I don't remember ever at an event. We've hosted presidential candidates at BRS, and yet this was the first event ever that we needed to rent and bring in metal detectors that people had to walk through in order to be able to come. Security was the most heightened it's ever been, for very good reason, for very credible reasons, because that's how wicked and evil there are people out there. It's really hard to imagine and believe, no matter what you think or agree or disagree, that would get to that level. People who got my children's cell phone numbers and harassed and abused, who got my Rebbe's contact number, harassed, abused, and faked, and who threatened in credible ways enough that the FBI and police were involved. And that's all we'll say is just a huge, huge thank you. Alan Poland of the Federation. We're so grateful for that coordination the Federation provides and how important it is. We were just talking to the CEO of Federation before we came on, and we were saying that, if you wait for an event like this is a message to our colleagues everywhere. If you wait for a threat or an event that you really need security, or there's something heightened going on and you have to start making calls and introduce yourself and develop a relationship, you're way too late. It's way too hard. That's why it was so amazing that, Federation has a head of security for our whole community, Alan, and we've got Captain Moss's cell phone number, and we've got David Berg. These are all relationships that exist and that are in place so that when we needed it to coordinate was as simple and smooth as you could imagine. So, and expensive. Metal detectors are not inexpensive, but of course, protecting your life is well worth it. I will just say, it's the first experience I ever had of standing up at the beginning of an event at a packed room, looking out at the audience and trying to scan a room to wonder who there might be. Who is it going to be? Yeah. When I was introduced to the Chazan right before the event, I was told he knew the Star Spangled Banner also, but I was told that he knew the Hatikva. We were choosing what songs to sing. And then I said, do you know Kel Mully, in case you need that for me?
Come on.
It was a little somber moment. But anyway, let's just, we'll bring on our guest in a moment. But this just in. Discover Niagara Falls, Canada. Great place. The weather's warm. Drive to Toronto. Lots of kosher restaurants and fun things to do. Thank you, Alan. Rita also tells us that there's an American side and a Canadian side.
Interesting. Which side is better?
Falls. Nobody is weighing in to tell us, can you go over the falls?
Because no one lived.
No one survived to tell us. No one survived to tell us the answer to that question. Bob Diener, why is he a guest tonight? How long? We've known Bob a long time.
Bob's
seen him at Aipac, worked with him in Aipac.
Friend,
Florida resident,
major
leader.
Philanthropist in South Florida, leader in our community, supporter of many of our programs.
Yeah.
And very wise man.
No,
I'm just saying, he's a very wise man. If you live in South Florida, if you've been at Aipac, you know the name. If you don't, you're about to meet a man who's really at the front row seat of many organizations that you're familiar with, and is making a big difference. And hopefully everyone will come inspired by the difference that he's making, and will hear a call to action for a difference that they can make in their own lives.
One of the pieces of feedback I got is to give a little more bio on our guest. So let me tell you that Bob Diener, co-founder, president, GetAroom.com, which he just sold, awarded best hotel booking site by Fromers.com. And that is not my website. And he received, founded hotels.com and sold it. He had a law degree from Cornell, where he's the editor of the Law Review. He practiced law in a firm, and then founded and headed and sold several airline travel companies, and created the merchant model for booking hotels, launched one of the first travel sites on the web in 1995, was ahead of the curve using technology. He has one of the most successful IPOs ever, and leading travel industry expert, frequent guest on NBC, CNN, Fox News, and more. He's on the national boards of Aipac, Israel Bonds, Hasbara Fellowship. He's active with Czech Hill Community School, Asia Torah, Greater Miami Jewish Federation, JCS Kosher Food Bank, Miami Children's Museum. The list goes on and on.
A great supporter of
Entrepreneur.
Momentum
of the Year by University of Florida. Great supporter of Momentum.
That's right.
He lives in Miami, and he's a good friend. So it's really a great honor to be able to welcome him behind the Bima this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Diener. It is to be joined by our dear friend Bob Diener, Hello Community Day School, Isha Torah, Federation. I don't think there's anything that you're not involved in leading and helping and building, Bob. It's a privilege and a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Well, it's great to be on with you.
So I want to start with an article. You have several articles on Aish.com, and in one of those articles, you offer some of your reflections on this pandemic and what it's been like. And you write there, yes, it's nice to have possessions and have the funds to take vacations, buy what we need. Nothing wrong with acquiring wealth as long as we did it ethically and use the wealth to improve the world around us. Now is the time to think about whether we're making best use of the talents and assets we have. When we realize we have a purpose and mission in life, we realize that wealth is just one tool we've been given to fulfill that unique mission. Really powerful and really profound words. But Bob, help us understand, how does a person ask themselves that question? How do we know if we're making the best use of our talents and assets? How do you ask yourself that question, how we should be making the use of our talents and assets?
Well, it's a good question. First of all, I've been through a lot of different types of up and downs in the economy and the world, and obviously the pandemic now, SARS, Ebola, the Great Recession, the NASDAQ crash, and many others. So I've seen a lot of ups and downs. And what happens is, we go so fast in life that we're just going hundreds of miles an hour, and we really don't think about what's our mission and where are we going, what are our goals, until something happens. And when something happens, like this pandemic, we just stop, we slow down, and all of a sudden, we can't lead our normal lives. We start to ask, well, maybe I have a purpose here. Maybe I should be doing something different. This is a time, it's an awakening. It's a wake-up call. This is a time for us to think about where are we going in life? What's our purpose in life? And I believe that everybody has a unique purpose. God gave us all unique gifts, and we're all different. We all have very different talents. And it's incumbent upon each of us to figure out what those talents are and how we can best utilize those talents to make the world around us better. And so how do you do it? You think about what are your best assets? What are you really good at? And how can you use those assets to help your community, to help those around you, to help make your world better, and to help reach your overall goals? And you can also at the same time be thinking about what are those goals and what do you consider success in life? This is the time when you're spending a lot more time at home, when you can't go on the road as much, to think about those issues.
So let me ask you a personal question. We'll go a little bit behind the Bima. As you've thought about those issues, is there anything you can share with us? Coming out of the pandemic, are there things you want to work on? You've led almost every Jewish cause you can name. You've been involved in the Jewish community in extraordinary ways, and we're so deeply grateful for that. But coming out of the pandemic, have you pivoted? Have you realigned? Do you say, you know what? My next chapter, I want to do this, either professionally, personally, philanthropically. Have you come out with a different direction, and can you share it with us?
Sure. So the way I look at where can my contribution go, and how can I contribute to the world around us? I think about how to make transformational change. I'm in the technology business, the hotel and technology business, and my life's been all about changing the way we do things. It's been about disintermediation. It's been about technology. It's been about how the internet changes our lives. And so now I'm thinking about that much more from a Jewish organizational perspective. What can I get involved in that's going to dramatically change the paradigm? So let me give you an example. At Aish, and I've been very involved with Aish for many years. I was very involved at the early stages of Aish.com and really helped them build it out. I'm involved in the Ask the Rabbi, with the chat with the Rabbi at Aish.com right now. And so I'm working with them. They have a goal, and they have a great vision. And the vision is, over the next 10 years, to reach 3 million Jews. And primarily Jews that are not really connected to the Jewish community. That's a very difficult task, but it's transformational, because if they can succeed over 10 years in connecting 3 million Jews to their heritage, that's incredibly powerful. And so I'm working closely with them in achieving that. And it's going to take a lot of testing. It's going to take a lot of the latest technology, a lot of trial and error, a lot of persistence. But that's what I see as transformational. I'm also working very closely with Chabad on campus. I worked with them on totally revamping their technology platform. And they have just completed the first phase of totally revamping their technology. And now all national programs on Chabad on campus are all automated. It's all built in a system. And what we're doing is with each individual Chabad house around the country, we're doing tests right now and pilots and working to have them taking all the national data and all their local data and making sure it's all tracked so they can use that data to be much more powerful, to show students where they are in their journey, to show them, for example, what others are doing that are in similar situations. They can see what programs are more effective. They can see what programs have a better ROI or a better return on investment. And that way, they can be much more effective with their time and reach a lot more people through technology. This is going to be transformational for Chabad on campus. We're through the first phase. We're working on the second phase right now, which is combining the local chapters with the national programming and looking at the data we have and seeing how we can use that data to make every Chabad house in every community so much more important. And we're working on how we can make Chabad relevant to every Jewish student that gets to campus.
So what you're saying basically,
just a certain percentage, we want to reach every Jewish student. And we're working on ways to do that, largely through technology. So those are just a couple of the programs I'm working on that I see as transformational. And I see through relevant tools, through recent technology, and how we can really change the paradigm of Jewish connection to our roots and reaching a much higher percentage, much wider percentage of the Jewish population.
Those sound amazing. We're looking forward to seeing the results and the impact. But your message to our listeners, your message to those watching is figure out what you're good at. Where's your skill set? What's your proficiency? And don't only think about how it can benefit you, contribute it to benefit the world around you. And in your case, that's technology. But in our listeners and everyone should ask themselves, what's your skill? What's your passion? What are you good at? And now don't only use it for your benefit and advancement, use it for others as well, right?
Right. And when you get to certain stages in life, you realize that it's not only about yourself, that if you really want to feel fulfilled and if you really want to have success, and when you think about what you can do for others, it's thinking about what are your strengths? What can you contribute? What strengths do you have that will make our community better? And then you should utilize those strengths to actually go out and help organizations and help our community.
Now, how do you decide what to get involved with? My guess is you get an influx of opportunities to impact the landscape of Jewish organizations. How do you decide? How do you decide what speaks to you, what you're passionate about? How did you come to that passion? Take us behind the Bima a little bit. And when someone comes and makes a pitch to you and says, Bob, you have this great experience in certain areas. We would love for you to get involved in an organization. What are you looking for where you can make that impact? You say, this is the type of thing I want to get involved with. This is where I think I could make my mark. And where do you get that inspiration from? Now, what in your childhood, what in your upbringing led you to that point that that's what you're looking for in Jewish organizations?
So unlike a lot of people that, they get involved in organizations because people call them and people contact them, I'm really the opposite. I find the organizations I want to get involved in. So let me give you an example. After I first sold the first part of hotels.com, I wanted to build a Jewish website that I thought could connect millions of Jews everywhere without, a lot of Jews just aren't comfortable coming to a synagogue, going to a class, but going on to the internet where they're they don't have to answer any questions to anyone, no one sees them, they're much more comfortable. So I wanted to build the Jewish website. So first thing you do is when you want to build something, you look and you do your due diligence. And so I did my due diligence to see who was out there. And the site that I thought was most aligned with my thinking was aish.com. And so I contacted them and I arranged for the editors to fly out from Jerusalem. And we met in my office in Miami for about a week. And we mapped out a whole program to build out aish.com to where it is today, which is just an incredible site where you can go for almost anything you want to know about Judaism. You can find some information on aish.com. So another example is the other thing I wanted to do after I sold the first part of hotels.com was to work on Israel advocacy. because the Israeli government at the time, after Oslo, they thought, well, hey, we have Oslo now. What do we need? Shaliachs and a lot of resources on campuses advocating for Israel. We have Oslo now. We have peace. Well, obviously that didn't work. And so campuses were left with almost really no pro-Israel professionals there. And it was really a disaster. And so I was looking to build a program to train students on how to advocate for Israel. And after doing, again, my due diligence and a lot of research, I found this program called the Hasbara Fellowships that was just starting. It was partially being funded by the Israeli government because they realized they needed to do something, but they really needed a boost. And so I contacted them, and I also met with them, and I met with their team, and I worked with them to build out Hasbara Fellowships to make it an incredibly strong program where we find talent on campuses, find really leadership on campuses around the country, bring them to Israel for an intensive 3-week program, and teach them how to advocate for Israel. Not only by taking classes and listening, but actually have them get up and debate the issues with others. And so those are a couple of examples of how how I find organizations or missions that I'm interested in. Now, what's my motivation? Well, I grew up in a Jewish home in Miami. I was a student at Hebrew Academy, so I spent, I grew up in a Jewish day school. My mother was from Haifa, and we spent every summer with my grandparents in Israel. So I became a real Zionist like my grandparents were. And I just have a special love for the state of Israel, given that I spent almost all my summers growing up there. I have a lot of cousins there. And I believe that, if I'm not in Israel, fighting in the IDF and defending the country in Israel, then I need to do what I can here in the US. And what I can do here is use my resources and talents to advocate for a strong US-Israel relationship, hence my involvement with Aipac, and do everything I can to make the Jewish community here stronger, hence my involvement with Aish.com, Chabad on Campus, and other organizations that I believe are doing a great job. Now, almost every nonprofit that I'm involved in, it's not just meeting them, seeing their information and sending them a check. So what I try to do is, first of all, if I believe in what they're doing, and I think they're doing a good job at it, and I believe they have good jockeys, very good people working in the organization, what I try to do is make them more efficient. I try to understand their mission, help them refine their mission. And then I provide them, and I work with them in setting up tools of measurement. So almost every charity that I'm working with provides me a report, typically quarterly, that I call it's an ROI report, return on investment. And the way I look at it is, what are the expenses of the organization, and what are they achieving? And I try to set it up so that it's an algorithm that puts different organizations on a similar footing based on a weighing scale. So for example, if an organization is successful in taking a student with no background, and they're going to Israel and learning for a year, they're learning one-on-one, say, with a rabbi every week, or they're going to regular classes, that's a pretty high level of success in someone that's really connected with the community. If I'm measuring an organization and saying, okay, their work, where did those students end up in a few years after they left college or after they finished their involvement with that organization? What's their level of engagement with the community? And then we measure those based on a scale in terms of their level of engagement. Are they chairing an organization? Are they regularly attending an organization? Are they regularly attending a synagogue? Are they regularly doing advocacy work on behalf of the U.S.-Israel relationship? So I try to set up measuring tools with each organization so that I can see how effective they are. So at the end of the day, if let's say I'm involved in 5 or 6 organizations for Israel advocacy, I can compare which one is more cost effective. And it can be dramatically different. So an organization can spend a fraction of the money, a fraction of the dollars to achieve the same goal as another organization that maybe is not really using technology, maybe is really working kind of in the Stone Age and just is not nearly as efficient, it could cost them 5, 10, 20 times as much to achieve the same goals. So obviously I'm going to work with the organization that's much more efficient because my dollars and resources are going to go much further. So I try to look for, number one, organizations that are fulfilling a mission that I believe in, and connecting Jews to their roots is something I really believe in. Yeah, at different levels, but just so many Jews are unaffiliated today. I want to connect them. I want to get them connected so they start asking questions. So they start appreciating who they are, where they came from. They start appreciating their background. And once you appreciate it, you have the self-motivation to learn more and to get more involved. And I want to make sure that we set up the next generation in the US, certainly of Jews, but also non-Jews, that care about the state of Israel and that want to advocate to the state of Israel. And I want to make sure that the U.S.-Israel relationship, that keeping that strong, is something that's important to the next generation here. Because that's how I can help make the state of Israel so much stronger. Even though I'm not out there fighting on the front lines, I can do a lot to help the state of Israel stay strong by keeping U.S. support for Israel strong.
The truth is, we owe you a big debt of gratitude. We had this event last night, and your family were one of the sponsors and supporters of it, and we're deeply indebted to you. We had almost 1,000 people, Jews and non-Jews, and they stood up for Israel, advocating for Israel.
That's
and
right.
Everybody left with homework. They left with a charge, which was today and going forward to make sure to lobby Congress to help get our boys home, Hadar Golden and Oron Shaul, who are continuing to be held by Hamas for 7 years. We had Hadar's mother here on our program Behind the Bima, and this family is still tortured 7 years later against international law, against all human rights. And we're hoping that Congress will condition aid to the Palestinians and rebuilding Gaza on these boys, on their bodies coming home, so those families can grieve. So we had a great event last night, a huge crowd. People are active, and you're making that happen, and we're so appreciative. What's interesting about the answer you just gave is, in the fundraising world, and I'm on the other end of that, they often say the number one reason that people don't give is because they weren't asked. And it's true. Sometimes we'll ask someone for a large sum of money to join a certain cause, to be part of our pillar society, let's say, at a high level, and they say yes right away. Well, why didn't you ever do that? Nobody ever asked. So on the one hand is a big part of fundraising, which is the number one reason people don't give, they're not asked. But you're saying, and it's really refreshing, and I hope people listen to your message, is don't always wait to be asked, and don't only give to the people who come ask. Be thoughtful about what you want to be part of and come to them. Say, I have certain dollars, I want to make a difference. Your cause or this effort matters to me, and I want to be part of it. And I think that's a great message, and I certainly welcome anyone coming to me as well. Can we go a little behind the Bima on, I know Rabbi Brody's itching to get in, but one more question first. Can we go a little behind the Bima on hotels.com and getaroom.com? How does a person go from having an idea and turning it into an enormously successful world-class business? You had a thought, let's use technology to book hotel rooms. And obviously it wasn't overnight. That's what people think. Something becomes hotels.com and you sell it and then you start your next company. What goes into do you doubt the thought? Do you research the thought? Did you run into obstacles? And at some point, are you prepared to abandon the thought? How do you break through to have that success?
Well, that's a great question. And, we live in a great country. We live in a great time. But, most important, and we have the opportunity here. So the most important is, and we understand this as Jews, you have to believe. You have to believe in your mission. You have to believe that you can succeed at it. And you have to have a plan. We have to have a mission. And you have to be really diligent and persistent in reaching that mission. And, when I started hotels.com, it was actually called Hotel Reservations Network. It started off slow. It took many years to build it up to what it became. It started off slow. But we were methodical. We were careful. It's the same thing with getaroom.com. And we recently sold getaroom.com to a major company, and we launched another company now called Travel Funders Network, or TFN, and it's actually the same thing. It starts off slower, but we're very methodical. We're very careful. We make sure whatever we say we do. We make sure we deliver for our hotel partners and our distribution partners, and a lot of the principles that I learned just growing up in a Jewish day school, and through studying the 5 books and studying Proverbs and studying Talmud, a lot of those basic principles are the principles that I use in business every day. So let me give you a couple of examples. How do you handle employees? Employees, you want to build a company, it's all about your people. It's all about finding the right people and motivating those people. And we learn a lot in Judaism about how to do that, because we learn in the Talmud that you should never let your workers wait to the next day to compensate them. So what's the message? You need to be very fair. And so we have an absolute policy of fairness with our employees. We never ever delayed their pay, even during the worst times. Sometimes we had to put people on a reduced schedule, but we were always fair with them. We made it up when we could. We treat every employee fairly, and every employee knows that. And we try to make every employee part of the family. At hotels.com, every employee had options. And so when the company did well, they all did well. But everybody was there, and it's the same with our current employees at the TFN. They're all part of the family. We're there building an organization from the bottom up to make it great. And it's about quality. It's about everything you do, making sure you do it right. And there's a very well-known Jewish principle in Leviticus chapter 19, which says, don't put a stumbling block before the blind. So I'm sure we've all had experiences where a stumbling block was put before. So what's the stumbling block? For example, you go to Publix and you're going to get some fresh fruit. So I like berries. So you go and you buy strawberries. And this is a classic Talmudic example. So you look at the berries on top, they look amazing, right? They're plump, they're red, they're juicy. You go buy it, it was expensive. You're all excited to have it. You get home, you wash them, you take out the top ones. The rest are all rotten and have mold on them. That's putting a stumbling block before the blind. Judaism teaches us you never want to do that. You always want to be fair with your customers, with your employees. And if you have a real policy of being honest and being fair, and of course, probably the most famous line of Judaism is V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Treat others like you want to be treated, right? Which we learned from the famous story with Hillel explaining Judaism on one foot. So that is the essence of Judaism. That's what I grew up with, is that treat others fairly. So, when it comes to customer care in the travel business, customer care is probably the most difficult thing to deal with, because almost everyone has had some travel horror story. The airplane's delayed, the luggage is lost, the plaster falls on your head in the hotel, the elevator's making noise and wakes you up in the middle of the night. There's just so many issues that can happen. So how do you deal with them? So a lot of companies have tons of manuals, and they hire these very expensive consultants, and they take the whole company out for big retreats. We don't do any of that. We have no manuals. We don't have any retreats on customer care. We have one standard in every company I've been with, and this is the standard we teach. Put yourself in the shoes of the customer. Wow. And respond the way you would want to be treated. Now, sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no. Sometimes it's a refund, sometimes it's not a refund. Maybe it's a partial one, maybe it's a credit. But whatever it is, that's the policy we follow. Treat others like you want to be treated. And when you build a business like that, regardless of what it is, by not putting that stumbling block before the blind and being very fair to everyone you deal with, people start to appreciate you and they start to patronize your business. And that's how you build a great business. Little by little, being methodical, being careful. So getting great employees, treating them properly, great customer service. And there's another principle in Proverbs which says that it's much better to be the creditor than the debtor. And it's not great to be beholden to the creditor. So in other words, don't over leverage. Be careful. And I always think I'm what you call a conservative entrepreneur. And a conservative entrepreneur means we're very careful. So, I've seen so many companies in my industry, they're spending a fortune and they're advertising everywhere, and their top line numbers look great, and the bottom line numbers have massive, huge negatives next to them, and they can never recover. So we're very concerned with top line growth, but we also watch the bottom line, and we watch it like hawks, and we're very careful. So and that's, again, all these are principles that I just learned growing up. It's part of what I grew up with. But these are principles that anyone can apply to make a business successful.
Give us an industry secret. What should we know when we're booking a hotel? How do we get a great deal, a great hotel? Give us an insider industry secret about hotels.
Sure. Well, first of all, you want to shop, because prices can be all over the place. So you want to shop, and there are different ways. There are different organizations you can join to get a better rate. But really, the best way is to really do your homework. Shop and be a little bit flexible. For example, a lot of hotels will give you a third night for free if you stay 2 nights, because most people, especially in resort areas like Orlando and others, most people don't know that. So, when you split the room up over 3 nights, and maybe the rate all of a sudden is so much better. So there's a lot of things like that. Checking in on a Sunday night is usually costs a lot less than checking in on, say, a Monday night when so many business travelers are coming in. So even time of the day that you book, sometimes you can get a better rate. You have to check the time of the day, because it's all about supply and demand. So, but my message is, it's all about the shopping and doing your homework and being diligent.
Hey, Brody.
Yeah, thank you so much. So even as a conservative businessman, I'm just wondering, with all the boards that you sit on, and do you see that there's a different set of standards that the nonprofit organizations have to abide by and the for-profits? In other words, even being conservative and marketing a product like hotels.com, you got to spend a lot of money in marketing. Many of us have great products out there, but sometimes we're limited by the boards putting restrictions on how much dollars you can actually spend on a marketing program in the nonprofit world. Do you kind of help them push the marketing side where we don't really have that? Or do you also just, pull back and say, listen, the dollars are scarce, develop your program, go out to the local neighbor who can probably get the marketing done for a fraction of the expense, but you would never do that in the for-profit world.
So my answer to you is that the standards for a nonprofit board and how you operate should not be that much different than in the for-profit world. Okay, the only difference is that you're not necessarily making a profit on the transaction, where you have another purpose.
Right.
The purpose may be to have someone advocate for Israel, have someone travel to Israel, the Jewish learning, maybe putting on tefillin, maybe it's coming on a trip. Maybe it's it's all different. It's whatever the purpose is of the organization. That's your we'll say profit like transaction. So when you measure your ROI, your return on investment, you're looking at how much are you putting in and what are you getting out. But what you're getting out of it, your return is not necessarily dollars, but it's something else. And for every organization, it's different. And so you need to measure that. And so the answer is, and I actually just dealt with this on a call with another Israel advocacy organization that was looking in expanding their reach. And it took an investment over the course of 8 to 12 months to do that. And we looked at it very carefully. We looked at what the upside is, what the downside is, what their cancel rates are, and so forth. And I advocated that they go ahead and try it. Limit the expense, but that they needed to try and they needed to test it. Because you want to expand your reach and you want to try different things. So yes, we're all under profit or not profit. We're all under financial constraints. Now, people come to me in my companies and they say they want to spend X. Now, everyone knows, and my executives know, if they want to spend X, they have to tell me what the return Y is. Otherwise, I just look at them and say, well, what's the return?
Yeah.
So they have to come in and they have to present, and they'll show me what the expense is and what the expected return is over the course of a period of time. And based on that return expectation, first of all, I hold them accountable for it, and we measure it and we watch it. But if I'm going to improve an expense, I want to know what that's going to bring to the company. It may not be today, but maybe over time. So it's the same thing in the nonprofit world. If you want to increase the expense, well, what is it going to bring? How is it going to further the mission of the organization? Maybe it's raising dollars for the synagogue. Maybe it's raising dollars for the hospital. Maybe, it can be a variety of different variables, but you need to measure it, and you need to be creative, and you need to be innovative. You can't. So many organizations are living in the past, and they had a purpose 30 or 40 years ago, but they don't really have a purpose today. So you asked me earlier about the number of reasons why people don't give is because they're not asked, and is that the reason why people don't give? Well, I think yes, of course you have to ask, but it's a lot more than that. It's because so many organizations don't make their case.
Yeah.
Right? You need to show to the prospective donor what their return is. What are they investing in? What are they going to get out of it? What is this going to do? And most organizations fail to make that case, or at least don't do it well. And the better you can do that, the more, if I'm going to talk to somebody about making a donation, I want to show them your donation, this is what it's going to do. This is what it's going to do for the organization. This is going to bring in new equipment into the hospital. That new equipment is going to help heal X number of people. It's going to allow us to serve a much bigger portion of the community. It's going to enable us to hold a lot more classes in the school or in the synagogue. It is going to make our schools so much better, which means our students are going to end up getting into better schools, et cetera, et cetera. So you need to clearly define that, so a potential donor really understands, what are they investing in?
This should be watched in every rabbinical school, every nonprofit school. I know that in addition to all this philanthropic work and business success and communal leadership, you're an avid kitesurfer, snowboarder, and triathlete. Have you competed in Ironman and triathlons?
Well, I actually just about 2 months ago, I completed my 12th half Ironman race, a triathlon.
Wow.
So it's great, and I've done many open ocean swims.
Wow.
And it's part of balance. So when I get up in the morning, I do yoga every morning, and then I do a workout, either running, swimming, biking, playing tennis, or if it's windy, I try to go kite surfing. But it gives me balance. And actually, when I'm out doing sports, this morning I took a several mile run. I was thinking about an organization that I'm working with, that I met with their CEO yesterday, and I'm working with them to help them really change their marketing through social media and really change kind of the audience that they're reaching over time, because they have a mostly elderly audience, and they really need to lower the age demographic if they're really going to succeed long term. And so while I was doing my run, I was thinking about, how am I going to suggest they do that? And so engaging in all these sports is just, not only is it great for the mind, great for the body, but also it gives me some time without any pressure, being out of the office or out of the house, to really think about different issues that are on my mind at the time.
Love it, and couldn't agree more. I'm sure many people are listening to this and they are thinking, how can we clone Bob Diener, right? If we had communities of people who are engaged and passionate and ready and willing to take their time, energy, resources, and wisdom and put it to our organizations, we would have very different looking communities. Are we doing a good enough job of that, right? Are we doing a good enough job of training our children, our teenagers, our college students, that one day you're going to go off into the workforce, please God, you're going to have success, and it's going to be your opportunity to give back. And you can't sit on the sidelines, but you have to follow in the footsteps of those who came before you and afforded you these opportunities, and you got to make your difference. Are we, and again, I'm challenging almost rabbis and community leaders, are we doing a good enough job of using that vocabulary and educating children, teenagers, college students, that it's not just enough to go to the workforce. It's not just enough to make money and to raise a family, but you gotta look to make a difference. That has to be part of the portfolio that you're putting together as you engage in your professional career.
So, a couple of times a day we say a prayer that comes from the Bible, which is that it's the Shema prayer that you should teach them to your children. So that's really a fundamental principle of Judaism. I think about that every day. And a lot of what I do now is trying to just not do it myself, and I try to teach my children how to do it, and I try to teach others. When I was transitioning, we recently sold Get a Room, and as I was transitioning, it was really all about training others to be able to run the company, which we did very successfully. And now I spend a lot of my time working with my kids and teaching them business principles, investment principles. I learn with right now one of my kids almost every day we study, and I've done that with almost all of my kids over time. I wrote a book which you can pick it up on Amazon. It's called The Biblical Secrets to Business Success, because I believe that if you have something to contribute, you need to put it down in writing. So we have this video, which should be great to distribute. Others will see it. But also, if you can write it in an article or in a book, it's a great way to compile your thoughts and leave it for others and for the next generation. So that the principles that, I took the principles that I believe led to my success in various businesses, and I try to lay them out in this book from a Jewish perspective. And so people can think about those when they're moving ahead in their lives. And hopefully they'll realize, I talk a lot about balance. And balance means balancing, not only obviously your business and your professional career, but also what about your family? What about learning? What about community engagement? So it's taking those, I call them really kind of those four pillars. So your professional life, your family, community engagement, it was study, and community engagement, or tzedakah. Those are kind of the four pillars that I look at all the time, and so you need to balance between these four. And I write a lot about that in the book.
And what are you studying with your children? You're studying Jewish texts, you're studying business texts. When you sit down with your children every day and you're saying, I'm making time to educate you, what is it that you're focusing on?
So we study Jewish texts, but we have, and that's on a daily basis. And then on a weekly basis, we have investment meetings between the family. And I try to, I tell the family and others what I'm thinking about from an investment perspective, what's happened during the last week. And we go around and ask each of them their perspectives as well and their comments. But I try to teach them the way I think about the world, the way I think about investing. So they'll understand it and they'll be able to do it themselves down the road.
It's brilliant. Now, Bob, my family comes from Elizabeth, New Jersey. My grandparents were there actually before Rabbi Teitz. Rabbi Brody grew up in Elizabeth, New Jersey.
Wow.
Tell us about your connection to Elizabeth.
So my grandparents lived in Elizabeth and were very involved with the JEC, the Jewish Educational Center. My grandfather, Judah Diener, was actually the founder of the Daf HaShavua, which was a program that started on WEVD radio in New York, where once a week they would learn a page of Talmud. And eventually that became Daf Yomi, where now people learn every day, a page of Talmud. But growing up, my grandfather and Rabbi Teitz would come down to Miami, and they would do the program often here on Sunday mornings. And I would go with my grandfather and Rabbi Teitz to the program, where they learned the page of Talmud, and they did it over, and it was broadcast over the radio, which is really a novel thing back, because this was many years ago. And of course now with all the with the great technology of the internet, it can be done so much on a so much wider basis.
So you're really continuing your grandfather's legacy. He spread Torah on radio. You're spreading Torah on the internet with Aish and others. It's really an incredible continuity. You see that same theme of using technology and platforms to be able to promote Torah, which is very, very Really amazing. Really amazing.
And there's so much more to do. We've really only scratched the surface. I mean, there's the technologies get better really every day. And what I try to look at is how we can use these technologies to spread Jewish wisdom on a much wider basis, because we have the ability to do it, and we have the ability to connect with so many more with all the tools that we have. And we can do it in a very cost-effective way. It takes dedication, it takes being methodical and testing, but that's what I'm very focused on now.
Amazing. Well, Bob, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. Your wisdom, so much to think about. I'm so inspired right now and motivated. And honestly, in our role, in our nonprofit, our greater community that's made up of so much activity, and we have so much ambition, the language you gave us about how we measure and how we ask people to invest with us by giving them that ROI on what they're doing. It's really inspiring. It's really motivating. We thank you so much for all that you do. Thank you for your help in the event that we held last night. We're really proud of it. And it was, thank God, a great success. And thank you for your friendship. We're looking forward to doing things together, please God, in the future.
Well, it's been great being on with you, and kol hakavod on all your great work for Klal Yisrael. I've seen your involvement and the large groups you bring to that you brought to the Aipac conferences. I see your students from your community that are involved with the NCSY Israel advocacy programs that we're big investors in, and all the other great work you do to keep the state of Israel and Jewish community strong. So kol hakavod on all your great work.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Bob.
you.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great interview, great conversation, a lot to think about, a lot to unpack. Gentlemen, highlights. First of all, his grandfather started Daf HaShavua with Rabbi.
I love that.
An amazing innovation, a great contribution. Daf Yomi did not come from that. Daf Yomi did precede that, but maybe the popularity of Daf Yomi, because the radio reached so many people. It was something innovative in its time. Some takeaways, highlights. What are the biggest moments?
I loved his self-awareness, his awareness of what he's good at, what he can contribute, and his willingness to put his skin in the game to improve other organizations. And I think that's something that a lot of people can learn from. You know, he clearly has that knack for the technology side of things. I thought it was fascinating, his discussion of metrics and measures for organizations, something that I think Jewish organizations in general struggle with, of what that return on investment is going to look like. How are you going to measure success over the long run? And I got to say, I loved his description of running. Clear your head, your best ideas. You need to come up with something creative. You go out for a run. That's when I have my best thoughts.
Rabbi Moskowitz, when are you adding swimming and bicycling so that you too can be a triathlete?
It happens to be my running chavrusa recently did a triathlon, and I am not yet ready to do that. And my wife might kill you for suggesting that.
You're running chavrusa. I was with a group of guys. This could only happen like with a group of guys who decided to like drop and have a competition with push-ups for some reason, all fully dressed. So everybody was winded after like 14, 15,
my running
19,
chavrusa
20.
could do like 100.
Your running chavrusa was at like 80 push-ups with one finger with his ankles crossed. And when he stood up, he wasn't out of breath. It's just obnoxious, which is funny because he's the most humble, modest, amazing person, but he's obnoxious in how
we have a deal. He doubles anything I do. Anything I do, he doubles it. That's our starting point.
You and I have the same idea when it comes to eating. We go out and I double whatever you do.
I mean, Brody, takeaways.
That's amazing. First of all, I loved how you said to him how, you know, traditionally we hear from donors that, you know, if they're not asked, they're not going to give, and how he does his research to look for companies that best suit his skill set. I was actually listening to an interview that he had done with someone else, and he asked the person during the interview, he said, "You have any idea how much money I spent to invest to build hotels.com?" The guy's like, I have no idea. I mean, how much? A couple $100,000. He says, it was me and my partner. We each contributed $600. It took 2 years to collect the other $600 from my partner after we already started doing well. But what he essentially did, and this is what's so amazing, is that he changed the entire industry. Everyone was used to actually paying for hotels when you went to the hotel. You showed up. But he actually came up with this concept. He says, you know what? Maybe people actually pay well in advance, which gave them the money to then hold it over for later. But when you come up with ideas that no one else is thinking of, and you change the entire industry by doing that, it just shows you, even the Jewish world, maybe there's so many things that we could be doing if we just think out of the box.
I want to follow up on that conversation. I already texted you that we should make a meeting with him, go down to Miami, because we try to use technology at Boca Raton Synagogue to get our values and our ideals and the difference we're trying to make using technology, and 100% thinking out of the box. I love how he's promoting Chabad, but Aish, Jamie Geller was on Behind the Bima, and she's the chief technology officer and charged with trying to reach those millions of people. And I agree with you. It was really inspiring that way. I just did hear I got an email from Bob Diener's 8th grade English teacher, Penny Jane Lynn. So shout out Penny Jane Lynn, who emailed to tell us she was Bob Diener's 8th grade English teacher. I don't know if she's taking credit for it all, but she does want us to know that. So she did a good job. He spoke very eloquently and he did a good job. So, but I agree with you. I was very inspired by his not being passive, not sitting back, not waiting for someone to ask him, but taking initiative, being proactive, saying, notice, and you can simply Google to get the history of his selling hotels.com. But he said, I sold the first unit hotels.com. And I said to myself, what difference do I want to make? Which is amazing. Other people say to themselves, which yacht, which plane, what mansion? I'm sure he did that too. You could also Google that. But he said to himself, what difference do I want to make? What do I care about? What am I positioned to do? How do I combine my knowledge, my wisdom, my skills with now my resources? And how do I go make a difference? You imagine you get that knock on the door. You're Aisha Torah. You get that knock on the door. Hi, I just made a lot of money and I have a lot of experience and knowledge with technology. And I really want to help you get ish.com from a mom and pop amateur site to blow this thing up.
And I'll fly you to Miami to meet with me.
Correct. Right. Everyone, 561-394-0394. If you have resources, skill, wisdom, and you want to meet with us,
ask for Josh Brody.
With call. We are all ears, and we're more than happy to partner with you. But that's I think a model. I hope people listen, and I'm going to try to listen to say not only what do I react to, because a lot of people react. A lot of people, they're stuck as like what envelopes they got in the mail, who knocked on the door, what phone call did they get, instead of proactively say, where do I want to give, what difference do I want to make? And that was a major point. I think there's also a big point for us.
How he includes his kids also. It's not just him giving and making the decision. Right.
I was going to ask him, can I just sit quietly on that call? How do we get in? How do we get in? No, but I also love the image of, and some of our local mentors who've been helping us. We have a major campus expansion project that we're going to be announcing soon. And thank God we're well on our way. But that exact argument that the if this, then that, right? If you were to partner with us, if you were an investor and stakeholder with these resources, here's what we could do. Not just the black hole and not just keep the lights on and not just more of the same, but if this, then that. With your help, with your support, with your contribution, we can meet this need of children, of teens, of empty nesters, of singles, of outreach, of Israel, of more Torah study, more learning, more chavrus partners in Torah, whatever the example is. So there's a lot for us to think about how we package and how we communicate and how we solicit. We're not only soliciting the funds, we're soliciting the partnership.
Yeah. And there's so much room for growth in all organizations. Even as I was listening to him, and I know you felt the same way, of my mind was racing of areas that he obviously, hopefully we'll have a chance to meet with him and pick his brain more in depth. But as you said, there's so many people that can contribute in so many ways to so many organizations. And whether it's from a technology perspective, customer service perspective, marketing perspective, as you spoke about, Rabbi Brody, if you're in the for-profit world and you're successful and you have a niche that you really excel in, you've got to share that skill set with an organization. Choose one that you're passionate about, that you love, that resonates with you, and go make a difference.
Okay, well, let's go a little behind the Bima here. I think, though, we, the nonprofit sector, have to do a better job of running our governance in a way of creating the opportunities for the people with the success and the know-how and the skills and the resources to not get bogged down by the bureaucracy, to not get bogged down by, the classic jokes about shul board meetings being about the egg salad brand and the paper towel dispenser and getting caught up in that kind of thing where board meetings are BORED meetings, right? And ours are not. Boca Raton Synagogue, we have phenomenal lay leaders, but that's the classic joke about shul board meetings. So, right, sometimes like the person that you want, we have to find opportunities for them to partner and lead without part of the ask being to participate in something that will drive them away and they'd never want to do.
Correct. And we see this all the time. Someone with an entrepreneurial mindset, or someone who's the CEO of a company and is used to being in charge, and all of a sudden you bring them to a board meeting and, as you said, people are asking about the herring and the gefilte fish at Kiddush, and this person's like, that's not me. I'm a very busy person. I'm used to giving orders, not taking orders. I'll help you, but you can't subject me to the challenges of a board meeting sometime. And that's a challenge we have with a lot of our donors as well.
Absolutely. Well, it's another great behind the Bima. We have Bob Diener and David Mueller, twins, separated at birth. Bob Diener and David Mueller. David, thank you for that sponsorship. Neshama's father should have an aliyah. And David himself is, by the way, a great successful businessman. Halal meat, large distributor. I read his whole book cover to cover on the history of his business, which was that was a different book.
I know. I read
that. A whole shelf. I told him he cost me a lot of money, David Mueller. I had to put on a bookcase because he writes a book a week. Which are
but they're my kind of books because they have a lot of pictures.
Not a lot of words.
We should do a series, Profiles of Boca Residents. We have some great members with really fascinating stories.
Yeah.
We should do a series. What was that we used to do at Shalosh? What was it called? True Boca Stories or something?
Yeah.
We should do a series online.
We'll get back to that. No question about it. So thank you to everyone for tuning in. Thank you for those who are encouraging the Niagara Falls visit. We learned a lot about Niagara Falls, the American side and the Canadian side. Even those advocating the American side have acknowledged and conceded that there's better food, kosher food, and opportunity on the Canadian side. I still don't have clarity on going over in a barrel. I have to spend some time working on that tonight, researching that.
I think we need to do a site visit, rabbinic road trip.
Tune in next week.
It'd be a great marketing ploy. The three of us in a barrel.
For the research. Where's our fact checker? Fact checker's had an hour and 11 minutes to let us know about going over Niagara Falls in a barrel.
Snoozing.
He's sleeping or redlining or.
I'll watch the two of you go over there.
Who knows what he's doing? But anyway, until next time, thank you for tuning in. Stay happy, stay healthy.